Pleased to welcome you here tonight to learn more about Community Choice Aggregation, CCA. I'm very excited about this program. It's the first of its kind in Monroe County. And I want to thank Joule Community Power and Roctricity for working with the town of Brighton on this innovative wholesale energy program. Thanks to buying in bulk through our CCA program, known as Monroe Community Power, Brighton residents and small businesses will soon use 100% renewable source energy at a price that's cheaper than RG&E's current supply pricing for non-renewable electricity. Our low CCA price will also be fixed for 2 years, unlike RG&E's pricing that varies and could go even higher. Maybe the best part about CCA is that most Brighton residents and small businesses won't have to do anything to get all of these benefits of community choice aggregation. Tonight is our third of 4 community Zoom meetings on CCA. And tonight you'll hear from Glenn Weinberg from Joule Community Power and Sue Hughes-Smith from Roctricity, which is a local company that's an outgrowth out of the former Rochester People's Climate Coalition. You'll hear them talk more about CCA and answer any questions you might have. There'll be one more opportunity for a Zoom meeting to learn about our CCA on December 8th, again at 7 p.m. But I hope that tonight you're going to learn that this is an exciting program, one that will not only save us all money, but will advance our shared commitment to make Brighton a more sustainable community. And with that, I'll turn it over to Glenn Weinberg from Joule Community Power. Glenn?
Thank you, Bill, and thanks for joining us tonight. As always, as Bill mentioned, this is the first CCA program in the region, and particularly special because it's a 100% renewable default electricity supply program for the town of Brighton. And I'm Glenn Weinberg. I'm from Joule Community Power, as Bill said. We're what's called the CCA, or program administrator, for the program. You may have seen our name and our logo on a letter that you received in the mail probably late last week, describing the program, including the available rates and your options as consumers, in addition to the benefits of the program, as Bill touched on. So we, as the CCA administrator, we really run the technical process. The town of Brighton has selected us as administrator to represent the town and its residents and small businesses in a regulated process and a competitive bidding process out to electricity suppliers in New York State, which we did this fall, and we're really pleased with the results. The outcome here is a very, very low fixed rate for 100% renewable electricity that you as consumers can take advantage of for up to 24 months, up to 2 years. But it's your option to leave anytime you like, should you not think it's a good deal, or should you want to choose another supplier or just simply go back to RG&E. No exit fee, that's your choice, but it's available to you as residents of the town of Brighton for up to, like I said, up to 2 years. We work in close partnership with Sue and Roctricity. Roctricity is the local program manager, so we, as the administrator, tend to oversee the technical process and the regulatory and utility process. And Roctricity is really the outreach, education, and communications manager, or arm of the program. So they've been the ones that have been doing all the presentations around town and putting up all the social media posts and flyers and distributing materials. And so by now, I'm sure you've seen and heard plenty about the program, but you'll get a chance, of course, to learn more tonight. And again, I just want to thank Bill, Supervisor Maley, and the rest of the town board for showing extraordinary leadership throughout this process and really pushing this program forward. And I want to thank Sue and Roctricity as well for just being tireless, contributors to the program and really leaders of the program. So with that, I will turn it over to Sue, and she'll walk through the presentation, but I'm looking forward to your questions at the end of the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Supervisor Maley, for the introductions and for your leadership in bringing this program to fruition. So my name is Sue Hughes-Smith, and I'm here on behalf of Roctricity giving the presentation this evening. Quick tips for using Zoom. You've arrived and your microphone and camera are off, but if you find the bar usually at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to find the Q&A feature, and you can type questions into that program right there. So let's get started. So Monroe Community Power, as Bill mentioned, is the name of our program here in Brighton. That's the aggregation name. And it actually does include the town of Irondequoit and the town and village of Pittsford. However, those communities are engaged in a slightly different clean energy program. And so tonight, I'm really just going to focus on what Brighton is doing, because Brighton is really leading the way with the adoption of a 100% renewable New York State-based CCA program. And you've already heard about Joule, who is the administrator, and Roctricity is the local program manager. And so if you call the office, you will either get a hold of myself or my colleagues Ben Freever, Margie Pete, and Melissa Carlson. So Brighton will be launching this CCA program on January 1st, 2021. That's when our enrollments in the program begin. So whenever your meter is red, that's when you begin being switched over into the CCA program. The Monroe Community Power logo, you can see here on the left. And if you want to keep up with program details, find where to contact us, or locate events or press, please see the Monroe Community Power website. There's all kinds of information located at the website. So this evening, I'm going to review community choice aggregation, just kind of briefly, what is it and the benefits to it. Then I'll get into the specifics of the contract details, present whether it will likely affect you and what your bill will look like, and the next steps. Okay, so community choice aggregation was authorized by the Public Service Commission in 2016 in April, and it is an energy purchase program. It allows municipalities to aggregate the energy demand and negotiate a bulk purchase. And this is simply shifting the default supplier from the state telling the utility, hey, look, if nobody makes a decision, you need to purchase electricity on their behalf. Instead, that decision is moved to the locality so that the town supervisor or the town board can decide what the default electric supplier should be. All energy customers are eligible to participate, but some are automatically included in the program. And that is called an opt-out feature that's dictated by the rules of the Public Service Commission. So it's a tool to accelerate communities' ability to source energy, and they decided opt-out was the best way to do that. For any entities that are very large consumers of energy, they could choose to join the community choice aggregation program, but they would have to opt in. Typically, it's not advantageous to large energy consumers because they've already had the ability to negotiate beneficial rates. but they could look at our pricing and determine that for themselves. So community choice aggregation is really providing residents and small businesses with the same opportunity that large energy consumers already have. So the benefits of CCA include leveraging the bulk buying strategy. So by aggregating the energy demands, we can then go to the market and dictate the terms that we're interested in having rather than ourselves being at the mercy of the market. We want to project savings for residents and small businesses. That's the goal. Also to eliminate price volatility by using a long-term fixed rate. It also enables the selection of the default supplier to be made locally. And hopefully this will accelerate the transition to renewable energy. As more and more communities demand renewable energy, that should trigger the market to respond. So if you look at the little diagram on the left here, you can see the dashed red line going up and down. That's the market representing the market electric rate. A utility has to purchase electricity at that market rate. So each month, if RG&E is purchasing electricity for you, there will be a different rate. And it can go up and down from month to month. Our CCA program is a fixed rate. So every month it will be the same for 24 months. We expect that this will produce some savings over the term of the program. But in any one month, the CCA rate could be higher or lower than RG&E's current rate. We'll touch on that again later. So the contract details, this is really very exciting because as Bill noted, this is the first 100% renewable CCA program in Monroe County. And Brighton has selected Source Power as the provider of the electricity. The contract term is 24 months. It's 100% New York State renewable. And the price is just under 4.3 cents a kilowatt hour, technically 4.292 cents per kilowatt hour. The reason why it's important to note that this is for New York State generated renewable energy is because this will be an advantage in NYSERDA programming, should the town of Brighton want to qualify for grant funding through the next round of NYSERDA grants. So will CCA affect me or you? Generally, customers are enrolled in an opt-out basis. So most residents and small businesses will be automatically included. There are a couple of exceptions. One is if you've already chosen a third-party supplier. So if you've contracted with an Esco before, and if that contract is still in operation, then you would not be automatically included, but you could choose to opt in and you would call us at Roctricity or use the website in order to do so. Another class of customers that are not automatically included are those customers that are billed based on demand. So if there's a demand meter or a very large consumer of energy, you would not be automatically included. If at some point you are tired of having Escos call you and offering you energy programs and you had placed a block on your account, then you also would not be automatically included. And finally, unfortunately, due to the rules associated with the HEAP program, any residents that are on the Home Energy Assistance Program are not eligible to participate in the CCA program. So all the other folks will be automatically included unless you take an option to opt out before the program begins. And the opt-out period goes through December 21st. You should have received a card in the mail. You can simply return that card. You can use the website to change your enrollment, or you could call us at Roctricity and we're happy to help you. We, of course, hope you stay in the program. We think it's a great deal and a really exciting opportunity. So will your electric bill look different? It will look a little different. I'm going to show you a picture of that in just a second. But I want to emphasize for you that RG&E's role does not change. RG&E will still maintain the poles and the wires. RG&E is still the entity you call if the service is out. They do all of those repairs and they will still send you your bill. So this is just a change within the RG&E bill. And what happens is where the details for the electric supply are located, they move. They move to a different part of the bill. So here's a little diagram, a little example of your RG&E bill. And I want you to notice the two, red ovals there, one for electric delivery charges and one for electric supply charges. So we're actually paying for two separate things when we pay our electric bill. The delivery is paying for RG&E's work, for their staff, for maintaining the poles and wires and sending us our bills. And don't get confused, because while there is a per kilowatt hour associated rate associated with that service, the CCA program does not affect the delivery portion of your bill. And that remains unchanged. That's all regulated and determined through the Public Service Commission. The next section, though, is the electric supply charges. And that's where we're actually paying for the electrons themselves. And that's the part that CCA has influence over. So that rate and where those details are located are going to move. Without CCA, your bill has the delivery, and right underneath it has the electric supply charges. But I'll show you that part moves later into the bill. Okay, but first, on the very front of your bill is a consolidated account summary. And you will see come February, right, because the program starts in January, so your February bill, you will see the name Source Power listed on the consolidated account summary, and you'll see the charge for the supply. Then further into the bill, you'll see the electric delivery charges. Those are RG&E's charges. And now the supply part has moved. It's no longer right below there. Instead, it's further into the bill, almost at the end where it says messages. And that's where you again will see the name Source Power. And it will simply have the energy charge, the number of kilowatts, the 0.4292 price per kilowatt hour, and the cost. So the next steps, you have already received a letter in the mail from the municipality noting the details of the program and how to opt out should you not want to participate. The new supplier will show up on your bill in February. So you'll begin to be rolled into the program in January, getting the new price with Source Power listed on the February bill. So that's how you will know for sure that you are indeed in the program, is when you see Source Power show up on that February bill. If for some reason it's not there and you know you want to be in the program, you should call us and we'll be sure to get that taken care of. So Monroe Community Power, again, is the website to go to if you want to keep track of any information, if you want to find out how to reach us. And the logo there you should recognize, and our contact details are right here. So you can call us locally at 244-0244 or email us at info@monroecommunitypower.com. Before we turn to questions, I just want to mention that in your letter, you should have also seen a flyer from Source Power. They were also advertising an opportunity to participate in community solar. And if you want to take advantage of that additional program, you should contact Source Power, and the number should be listed on that flyer. Or you can call us and we'll give it to you.
Thank you, Sue. We've gotten a lot of questions during the presentation, and one of the things I'm seeing a lot of, and I'm really pleased to see it, so many of you have questions about sort of the interface between an existing either solar or wind program that you have, or maybe you have solar panels on your roof. I'm really pleased to see that, because obviously a lot of you here in Brighton have already made a commitment to renewable energy. And, I think what you're going to find through this new community choice aggregation is that we're really upping the ante on your ability to get renewable source electricity at a very attractive price. But we have, someone asked about, they've signed up for getting wind power through RG&E. Someone has asked about, they have solar panels on their roof. How does, can they still participate in this program?
Why don't I take those two?
A variety of similar questions. So maybe Sue, you can start by answering those questions.
Sounds great, Bill. So first, the easy one. If you have solar panels on your roof, you can participate in CCA as well. Nothing changes for you at all. You will still see, your net metering information on your bill. It just does not impact that at all. So we're happy for you to participate and have solar panels. If you are in a community solar program, you also can participate in CCA. More good news. You just, in both of those instances, cannot enroll also in another community solar program. Okay, so you can only do one community solar program or have solar panels, but you can do both of those with the fixed CCA rate. So that's the takeaway message I want you to really hear, is that you can do CCA and have solar panels, or also I'll do the community solar and have CCA. As far as the Catch the Wind program through RG&E, I mean, it's kind of a personal choice that you're basically paying RG&E to purchase wind on your behalf. If you're already in a 100% renewable CCA program, all of your energy purchases are going to now be renewable, mostly hydro, a little bit of wind. So if you're only concerned about yourself, there's certainly no reason to also pay RG&E an additional $5 a month for the Catch the Wind program. Certainly your choice.
Thanks, Sue. And you mentioned mostly hydro, some wind as well. One of the questions points out that in the letter, the primary source of electricity is hydropower, and the question asks, do we know anything about the impact of any such dams on the ecosystem and the watershed? Why wasn't something more eco-friendly like solar or wind chosen as our source? I don't know if Sue or Glenn, obviously any new projects in New York have to go through the so-called seeker process, the State Environmental Quality Review Act process. So in one way, shape, or form, any renewable energy project located in New York is going to be reviewed under that program. And depending on how you look at them, there are different impacts to the environment. But Sue or Glenn, I'll let you expand more on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. The hydro facilities, by and large, that we work with are small and mid-scale. They're not the big, so don't think about Niagara Falls. Think more about a run-of-river hydro that tend to be smaller scale and also tend to be much lower impact on the local ecology. In fact, several of them are certified by an organization called LIHI, Low Impact Hydro Institute, I believe is the last I. And they're like LEED almost, in the sense that they certify existing facilities for a number of very thorough ecological analysis. And a number of those in New York State have been certified through that program. And others, even though they may not have that certification, it doesn't mean that they couldn't earn the same level of certification, in the sense that they do tend to be run-of-river hydro just generally tends to be lower impact. And we also purchase renewable certificates from a number of the wind farms in upstate New York as well. So solar there's a lot of what's called distributed solar, meaning it could be on your rooftop, or like community solar, which is smaller power plants, relative to, say, larger hydro or wind farms. There's very little what's called wholesale or utility scale solar in New York State to date. There will be, those projects are coming. But for what's available now, it's primarily hydro and some wind as well.
Thanks, Glenn.
I'll also just take this first question at the top there, Bill, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What is the price per kilowatt hour for both Joule and RG&E? What are the real differences there cost-wise? So the important thing to point out is that the fixed rate for the CCA is, as Sue mentioned, 4.292 cents per kilowatt hour. That remains fixed throughout the duration of the 24 months. The RG&E price will float. It will float with the market. It tends to be more expensive in the winter and summer and less expensive in the summer and fall, though it varies year to year and month to month. So the differences there going forward are difficult to predict pretty precisely, but we know where RG&E's recent prices have been, which have been typically in about the mid 4.5, 4.6. I'm not sure what if the December rate is out quite yet, but it's been about 4.5 for the last couple of months. So the CCA rate is a little bit lower and fixed.
And of course, that question also asks about real differences. And it's great that we're saving money. Yeah. But the real, at least one of the very important and very real differences is that this is generated in sustainable means, as we said, hydro or wind, whereas the standard RG&E supply has a small amount of renewable source energy, but most of their electricity would come from nuclear or natural gas generation. So yes, I like to talk about this as a win-win, because the price and the fact that it's a fixed price is huge. Where can you find someone these days that can make a price commitment for 2 years? But that's what we were able to get, because that's what we were able to specify. So the price is great, I believe, but really more important, the systemic, fundamental advantage of this program for our community is that it is renewable source electricity. A couple people ask, what if we didn't receive the letter?
Yes. So you would not have received the letter if you fall into one of those categories that Sue mentioned earlier. Just to review quickly, if you already have a third-party supplier, an Esco that you've signed up for independent of this program, if you are registered in the HEAP or some other RG&E bill subsidy program, you would not have received this letter. If you've initiated a block on your account with RG&E, you would not have received this letter either. And finally, unless you are a residential or small commercial non-demand, and Sue described nicely the difference between demand and non-demand, unless you are either a residential or non-demand commercial customer, you would not have received this letter. So if you still haven't, if you don't fit into any of those categories and have not received the letter, please call us and let us know, and we'll try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and if you're not sure and you have your RG&E bill in front of you, give us a call and we can talk you through it and try to figure out what might be the holdup.
Great, thank you both. Someone asked, the Monroe Community Power website links to Ampion for community solar, but when you use the QR code on the flyer, it links to Source Power. Yeah,
indeed, there are actually two options currently available to Monroe Community Power customers. The town of Pittsford and Irondequoit are using the program through Ampion. You just have two choices if you are in Brighton.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
That was a question I had. I didn't know the answer to that one, so that's helpful.
It's on the website, so you can select Brighton and therefore be in the Ampion program, or you can use the flyer from Source Power. Yep.
someone asked two questions. One, noting the climate here and that we don't see the sun very much. How does that affect the program? And two, asking whether there's any reason to expect an interruption in the flow of electricity. I'll answer the easy one, the second part of that, because I do know the gentleman that asked the question. No, there will not be, this will be seamless. There will not be any interruption. You'll hit the switch and the lights will go on. And I'll talk to my solar experts here and how the Rochester climate fits in.
Well, sure. So absolutely, the grid is full of electrons and they are flowing. And what we're doing with the community choice aggregation program is simply changing behavior through purchasing habits. So the electrons themselves are still moving. The hydro and the wind, doesn't matter if it's sunny, those are still happening. So really the question is, to me, directed towards if you're interested in a community solar program, how does that change? And just, I'll touch on it briefly, and I'm happy to talk to you more if you want to give us a call at the office, but community solar, the savings will appear on your utility bill and they will vary from month to month to month. So in the winter, the savings is fairly small because there's not a lot of sun. And then in the summer, the savings is quite a bit higher because there is a lot of sun. But that community solar savings is separate and distinct from the community choice aggregation program.
And can I'll also just add quickly that it's like, think about if you have solar panels on your roof, even if you live in the desert in Arizona, the sun goes down at night and you're not generating, right? So the grid kicks in and delivers you electricity, and so that you can use your power at night as well as during the day. It's really a very similar principle. All renewables are intermittent sometimes, or so to date. They're intermittent. Sometimes they're on and flowing, and sometimes they're not. But the grid is able to match that demand and balance to make sure that, like Sue said, that there's enough power all the time when you turn your lights on. And that's true. That's an independent process to who your supplier is. Just to reinforce that point. So no matter who you choose for your supplier, whether it's RG&E, it's the CCA, or it's some other supplier, the delivery, the reliable delivery of the electricity is independent from that choice. So the supply, your supplier is your choice, and it's a competitive marketplace. You can choose whomever you like. Delivery is a monopoly. It's a regulated enterprise. It's a combination of RG&E and then the grid operator, which operates at the state level, and they make sure in tandem that everybody's lights stay on all the time.
We've touched on a few solar related questions, but I want to clarify the one that asked. So we've already joined a community solar program through SunCommon, which also has a 10% discount off RG&E. They have solar panels in New York also. So is this basically the same as you are offering Brighton residents? And I pointed out that question because I want to clarify these are two different programs. Through source power, and you can not only we'll be getting our CCA from them, but they have a community solar program, but they are two different programs. So again, you can join the CCA, you will be a part of the CCA unless you opt out. And if you have community solar through SunCommon, you'll continue to participate in SunCommon's community solar program. But you can also choose the source power community solar program or one of the other companies that offers community solar. We have a question asking whether we could do a similar program for high-speed internet. And certainly anything we could do to reduce the price of internet service would be very welcome. Unfortunately, they are very different. As Sue pointed out early on in her presentation, it might have been Glenn, this is the community choice aggregation is regulated through the Public Service Commission, and it's governed by a whole variety of rules and regulations that the PSC has. There is really nothing like that for high-speed internet. Greenlight is a relatively new independent high-speed internet company, and they are still building out their network within the town of Brighton. I wish they were doing it a little faster. I'll just make an editorial comment here. I wish they were spending money on building their network out faster than they are building a big building for their headquarters. But that was just an editorial comment. Because I do think, Greenlight seems to be a great program. It saves people money. It's faster. Although there is no such thing as a CCA for high-speed internet, we're certainly hoping and we're working with Greenlight to encourage them to build out their network to cover more of Brighton as soon as possible.
I'm seeing a couple here that towards the bottom that I can are probably good for me, and then maybe one I'll toss to Sue. But can you talk about migrating people from existing Escos? If you've got an Esco already, and so therefore you're not automatically included, you can join the program. That's your choice. We're not encouraging you to leave your, but if you choose to, you can do that. But we'd encourage you first to look at your contract and make sure that you don't have any big exit fee or some penalty for leaving early or something like that. We wouldn't want to get you hit with a big bill. But presuming that you can get out freely, you can do that. You can call them, your existing supplier, or you can call RG&E to do that, or you can opt in through the program, and it'll all essentially get you to the same place. But you do have to take that step first. You will not be automatically included. Does the fixed rate include what is now the variable supply charge and the merchant function charge? So the answer is yes. You will not be charged a merchant function charge. The merchant function charge is a utility charge. That's it's an administrative charge mostly that covers the cost of billing and other administrative functions. So that will no longer be on your bill, and it does include the analog to the variable supply charge, which in this case is a fixed supply charge. But that fixed supply charge is what's called an all-in rate, meaning that it's just a one rate. There are no other charges on the supply portion. You'll still get the delivery bill, but on the supply portion, you'll just see one rate multiplied by the number of kilowatt hours you use that month. That's what you pay. Very broadly speaking, what kind of major events, I keep getting, would make the 24-month price through Monroe Community Power less favorable? What do you expect electricity prices to do in the next few years? I expect them to go up, but I don't expect them to go up right away. I expect that through the first half of 2021, they'll still be pretty low, around where we are now, but certainly end of 21 into 22, that's when I expect the market rate, and therefore the RG&E rate, to be quite higher. No guarantees, of course, but to be quite higher than our fixed rate. We came in we fixed at a very good time when the market was still low, was still sort of hitting a bottom with COVID. So we expect that to carry on a little bit longer. But I think by next summer, you're going to start to see the rates get back to typical. What would make them less favorable is if the market got even lower than it is now, which is actually hard to imagine. It's possible, of course, but it's hard to imagine because of how low prices have been. So for instance, if there was some long-term extension of the pandemic, for instance, and people just were not leaving their houses, we might expect electricity prices could continue to stay very low. But otherwise, most practical scenarios, the price will start to go up, as I said, in a few months. And then I also wanted to toss one to Sue here, about budget billing, and just the question about, and I lost it again here, but it's about whether or not, but with how does the program work with budget billing essentially?
Yeah, sure. So my understanding from RG&E is that when you switch into the CCA program, the budget billing would be trued up. So when you're in budget billing, you're paying a certain amount each month. And when you get to the end of your year, whatever month in the year that is, RG&E looks at how much electricity you did use and how much electricity you had paid for. Sometimes that means you get a credit, and sometimes that means you still owe RG&E some money, depending on how those two things compared. So in this instance, you would be trued up, and then you would be entered into the CCA program, and you could again start to enter into budget billing. So you would need to request budget billing again, and you would be trued up first, but then you could then proceed and continue to have a budget bill.
How does this compare to Fairport Electric, which is a municipal utility? So the difference there is that a municipal utility means that the municipality, the city, town, or village, has taken steps to actually purchase the distribution infrastructure from the utility and run their own utility. Now that was fairly common at the early stages of the electricity industry development, and still I think around 12% of the country is part of a municipal utility. There are several in New York State. It's less common now. I don't think the town of Brighton has aims on taking that step. It's quite a serious undertaking for a municipality to be their own utility, but CCA is nice in the sense that you sort of get the nice parts of being your own utility in the sense that you get to choose your sources. In this case, the town of Brighton wanted to source their electricity from 100% renewable sources, so they were able to do that without taking that further step of municipalizing entirely. There was also a couple. How will you handle?
And the other point about Fairport Electric, and it's my understanding that the supply arrangements that they have with basically electricity from Niagara Falls are no longer being made available to new municipal utilities. So even if Brighton did want to set up that kind of an organization, we would not have access to the same very low cost power that Fairport Electric gets.
Okay. How will you handle the introduction of demand electric meters in 2022? I think you're probably meaning to ask about smart electric meters, the rollout of smart meters. That smart meters alone don't change anything typically. So I have a smart meter here. I live in Con Edison territory. I'm a member of the CCA program here in Westchester County. I had no change or interruption with my supply when they installed my smart meter. The unique thing about smart meters is that it allows the utility to then offer you what's called the time of use rate, meaning that they charge you different rates based on when you use power throughout the day. So usually during the daytime, it's more expensive. At night, less expensive. But that's your choice. It's a voluntary program that you can choose to participate in or not. But your meter alone doesn't necessarily impact your supply choice. So when you get that smart meter in 2022, you will still be able to stick with the CCA if you choose to. If I opt out, would I be able to opt back in? The answer is yes. So you can leave and come back in. You can make that choice really as often as you like, though it is important to keep an eye on trends and not necessarily, I would recommend not reacting to a single month, for instance, where the RG&E price may go lower and then find the next month it's back up higher and so on and so forth. That tends to be the case with a volatile market rate. And a related question, as time goes on, how will we know how the CCA rate compares to what the RG&E price would have been? Because we'll tell you. We'll report on that on our website, and to the municipality formally, and to the Public Service Commission, and available through other public communications that we'll make. We'll keep you up to date as to how the program is performing against the utility price. And then you could make your choice whether to stay in the program or to leave the program. Okay. Town code does not permit solar.
We have another Suncommon question. It says, our present electricity service is provided by Suncommon. Unless I opt out, will we automatically be put in Monroe Community Power? Sue, do you want to address that?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, there are, I think, a couple questions there. But so
Right.
if you are enrolled in a community solar program, nothing will change for you in terms of that program. So you can still be with Suncommon and be in the community choice aggregation program. Both.
And that's the important point to note. Suncommon is a community solar program.
Correct.
But they're not the sole supplier for a residential customer.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's a little bit counterintuitive, but community solar does not replace your electricity supplier. So if your RG&E is your supplier and you sign up for community solar, RG&E is still buying electricity for you. Likewise, if you have an Esco, including the Cca Esco, you can still join community solar, and that Esco will be buying for you. So if you have the community solar and you're in the Cca, you'll be supporting local clean energy through the community solar subscription, and Source Power will be buying 100% renewable power on your behalf, rather than a mix of fossil fuels and nuclear and the quote unquote standard mix that RG&E will be buying on your behalf instead. I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but that is how it works.
And to clarify, because someone asked the question, is it CCA and rooftop solar and community solar? No, you can't do all three, and you can't today. You can't today with RG&E. Regardless, you can have rooftop solar, or you can have community solar. But regardless of who your primary energy supplier is, it could be RG&E, it could be an Esco, it could be the CCA, you cannot have both rooftop solar and participate in a community solar program. Now, I think, Sandy, that probably answers, but I just want to make sure, because Sandy has asked if we already have a third-party provider and want to opt into the town's CCA. And if what we're talking about here is an Esco, you would have to leave the Esco to become a part of the CCA program. If by a third-party supplier, it is a community solar program, that you can have both.
Right.
Both the community solar and the CCA.
Yeah. Exactly. So you can have one supplier and one solar deal, and that supplier can be anyone you choose. We hope you choose the CCA, and that solar deal can either be on your roof or community, but you can have one of each, and that's sort of the limit. I also want to address a quick one, and then you guys can pick up on any others you like, but can I opt out of the donation to support the Brighton Community Project? This should be voluntary option. You're not getting charged for that. So that's a donation that comes from us, from Joule, and we collect those. We make the donation on your behalf, essentially, into a sustainability fund for everybody that signs up for the community solar. It's like an added bonus, a collective shared fund that the town can allocate to some great project, and we'll be excited to talk about that with the town in the coming months. But that's something that does not come out of your pocket as the consumer.
And I'll answer the question after that. The question asks, is it hypocritical of the town to be actively pushing town residents to join Monroe Community Program when in fact, per a section of the town code, it does not permit solar energy systems as the principal use of a property? So these types of developments are good for others, but not in the town of Brighton. You know, there's a lot of pieces to that question, and in fact, the town of Brighton does specifically permit rooftop solar projects, as you see more and more around town. But in a residential zone, no, we do not allow a solar farm in a residential district, and I'm not looking at the specific section of the code, but I think that's that's what we're talking about here. And of course, in different types of zoning districts, but specifically in residential districts, there are a number of different uses that are not allowed. You can't build a rendering factory, in a residential zone, and yet you can buy candles in the town of Brighton. I don't know if that's a fair analogy, but I do think most people would agree that in a residential neighborhood, large commercial solar panel projects are probably not a good fit. We've seen down in the southern part of the county, in a very rural agricultural part of Monroe County, a lot of community local opposition to big solar farms. But I would say that in larger lots in less developed parts of Brighton, I certainly wouldn't be averse to considering a solar farm, and in fact, it might be a very good use on some other parcels. But I think in a residential zone, no. And you and I may disagree on that. I don't consider that to be hypocritical. I think that's realistic, that solar farms and residential neighborhoods are not a real good mix.
If I could jump in, I seen Mary's asked about the name Monroe Community Power as opposed to CCA. So Monroe Community Power is the name of the aggregation, and there hopefully over time will be several different types of energy programs that are being offered. And Monroe Community Power includes more than just the town of Brighton. So the Community Choice Aggregation, or CCA, is one program that's being offered through that aggregation. So sorry if that's confusing. Hopefully that clears that up.
And Ken has amplified on my answer, and I appreciate that, Ken. It says we do not allow a solar farm anywhere in any zone of the town. But what I will say is one of the town's most important land use tools is incentive zoning. And we could certainly use incentive zoning to make a decision that a given parcel of land, incentive zoning really allows the town to look, in incentive zoning, it's in some circles been controversial, but actually I think it's been a very beneficial program for the town, allows the town to basically give what might otherwise be called a variance or a change of use on a parcel of land. And we could certainly consider, under incentive zoning, a potential solar project if it made sense on that parcel of land. So what I guess I would still say is I think it is very unlikely that we would ever consider such a solar farm in a residential neighborhood, although we do allow rooftop solar, but we might well allow a solar farm, not as big as some of the ones you see in other places, but a dedicated solar facility in another part of Brighton that was undeveloped.
Yeah, and I just quickly piggyback. It's actually fairly common, or I should say, it's fairly uncommon for, and I don't know the Brighton code specifically, but it's fairly uncommon for these farms to be explicitly allowed. It often goes under a special use permit.
Right.
You know, in many, so it's that itself is not particularly anomalous. This is the first.
These points on rate. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
There are a couple questions about the price.
Yeah.
Okay, so the rate will be, as of January 1st, the 4.292 cents per kilowatt hour, and it will stay fixed at that rate for 24 months. And to address Pat, this is renewable because it's being purchased. The renewable sources, hydro and wind, are being purchased for this program. And although the rate is not a lot lower than the RG&E rate currently, it is considerably lower than what you or I could get as a retail consumer. If I wanted to buy this product for myself at my house, the best I could do is actually 6.1 cents per kilowatt hour. And so this is 25% cheaper than that. So it's really the power of aggregation to deliver a better product for our community.
There's a question asking about meetings for seniors, which is a well taken point. We'd love to be doing in-person meetings right now. We can't. We have to do these virtual meetings. We do it through Zoom because we feel it's the most accessible, and people are used to it by now. You know, through this last 8 months or so. But I will say, especially, hopefully in the spring, I was saying this to Bill and Sue earlier today. Hopefully in the spring we'll be able to get back. And one thing that we will really prioritize when we're starting to do in-person meetings are the senior centers and other meetings specifically for seniors, because we know that there is not always universal access to these means of technology. So we want to be sure that although we can't do it now, we'd like to, although we can't do it now, that as soon as we can, we're going to come and try to pay you a visit and do a presentation for you to let you know what's going on with the program. There's a couple more I could probably do quickly.
And I'll just add a couple things. One, obviously, and I'll remind everybody of that phone number again, 244-0244. Certainly anyone can call that number. And really, there's, you know, as we've seen by the variety of questions tonight, there's you know, a lot of really good questions out there. So nobody, you know, of whatever age should feel, oh, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to ask, I don't want to call them and ask a question. I'm going to seem, you know, dumb. Well, no, we've had a lot of great questions tonight. These are important questions. So I encourage anybody, any age, 244-0244, and a live person who will talk with you, walk you through the program, answer your question. And actually, Glenn, I am going to, the Brighton Senior program they are themselves gathering remotely these days, and I plan on speaking with them remotely again about this. I really appreciate, you know, one of the things Roctricity has done is work to make sure that this program is out in the media. There have been articles in the newspaper. A couple of the TV stations have covered it. For those of you that get the Brighton Connection magazine, and I wish it went to the entire town, it doesn't, but that's not our decision because it's not our magazine. But my column in the November issue of that magazine covered community choice aggregation. By the way, somebody asked, what is CCA? Community choice aggregation. Well, we apologize if we use acronyms. So we're going to try to use as many different ways of reaching out to people. What, a week from tomorrow, is it, Sue, that you and I are on WXXI radio, Evan Dawson's?
A week from today, Bill. It's the 8th.
What's that?
I think it's
Week from today. Yeah, you're right. It is. It's a week from today. So, so we're going to try. We know that whatever communication means, we're never going to get everybody, and that's why that phone number is going to be there. The website is going to be there for answering questions. But again, I think there's a lot of really important takeaways from this. But one of the most important, and again, it's relevant for folks of all ages, you don't have to take any action to become a part of the CCA. If you like what you hear tonight, and I really hope you do, because I meant it when I talked about how excited I am that sustainability, getting renewable source electricity in this quantity is really transformational for our community and for our area. But the pricing, the fixed price, the price that is below what you would currently pay RG&E, this is a program that I really do hope people will not take any action, and you will automatically be a part of community choice aggregation that way.
Okay, I can probably knock off a couple of these. Will I have to pay a fee for owning a smart meter with CCA fixed pricing? That is, the utility will be able to recoup the price. RG&E will be able to recoup the price of the smart meters. It's almost always dealt with on the delivery side of the bill, or on the regulated side of the bill. And it varies utility to utility. I'm not sure precisely how RG&E has dealt with that in their most recent filing, but it will not impact the CCA pricing itself, but there may be some charge, or it may be otherwise baked into your delivery charges.
Yeah, I don't know either, Glenn, but it brings up another good point. Sue talked about all the things that won't be changing. If maintenance, repair issues, but meter reading is another thing that will continue to be done, at least for now, with traditional meters, manually by RG&E meter readers. And at some point, when there are smart meters, when the PSC allows, and those all begin to go in, then they will be done, with remote reading. But those will still be RG&Es. Those will not belong to the CCA.
That's right. And usually not too much on smart meters because it starts to confuse a little bit since they're totally separate issues. But usually there also is a way to opt out of that too. If you don't want RG&E to install a smart meter, they will likely send you a flyer, almost like the letter we sent you that says, if you don't want this, let us know. Since the fuel for CCA is free, well, let me take this. The donation is not to the town directly. So to this question about kickback, the donation is to a initiative or project that is determined collectively by the community. and that it's a sustainability project of the community's choosing. And that's how that works. It's not it's not a kickback to the town itself, or it goes to the
Pay to play. It's not pay to play.
Not pay to play, and it doesn't go on the town's balance sheet. It is a donation to a project that is the town meaning the community, not the town meaning the municipal government. So to speak to that, do we expect the rate to increase more slowly than RG&E? The great thing about CCA is that the rate stays precisely the same. We will have to renegotiate that rate in 2 years. But for the next 2 years, starting January of 21, it will stay precisely the same no matter what happens to the RG&E rate. And like I said earlier, we do expect the RG&E rate to climb over that 2-year period. And the CCA rate will stay precisely the same.
And in 2 years, I anticipate we will sort of replicate the process we went through earlier this year. We will go out to the market. We will go out to wholesale power suppliers, and it's like going to Costco and buying 24 rolls of toilet paper. When you buy wholesale, when you buy in bulk, you're generally able to get a more attractive price. So we'll go out 2 years from now, and one of the things that I've learned a lot working with Joule and Roctricity. There are more and more companies out there over time that are selling renewable power. As more and more of us demand renewably sourced electricity, this is an attractive market. So what I hope will happen is that when we go out for competitive bids again in 2 years, we'll have even more options to choose from. But in each case, we have a big enough buying power with well over 10,000 residential customers here in Brighton to be very attractive for people to bid aggressively to get our business.
So a question's come in from someone wondering if they join the CCA program and then sell their house. How does that work? And the CCA applies to the electric account. So if someone new moves into your house, they could choose to join the CCA program. They would need to opt into that program, but they would not be obligated to stay in that program.
They could opt out like anybody else.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's a question about the distinction between Joule and Monroe Community Power. Joule, the company that Glenn Weinberg is with, is the plan administrator. And you can't just come in off the street and become a plan administrator. That is part of this whole Public Service Commission regulatory process. Joule is one of, I think, still 3 companies in New York that are allowed to, by the Public Service Commission, to be plan administrators for community choice aggregation plans. Monroe Community Power is the group, is the sort of the plan itself. It's the group of municipalities, Brighton, Irondequoit, and the town and the village of Pittsford. And someone asked earlier about, what's different about what Pittsford and Irondequoit are doing. Brighton is the only one right now that is doing community choice aggregation, has an active community choice aggregation program. Pittsford and Irondequoit are doing community solar through Monroe Community Power.
So here's a great question. Is the power from the nuclear power plants on the table for community choice aggregation? I think this is probably a better question for you, Glenn, but I'm pretty sure.
The answer, it's an easy one. The answer is no. The only sources that the supplier is contractually, or I should say contractually, the only sources the supplier is permitted to purchase from are solar, wind, and hydro, essentially. So as I mentioned, there's very little, but some wholesale solar, but the vast majority of renewable power that meets that definition, and it's not just our definition, but it's New York State's definition, are really wind and hydro. And that might be, we might have gotten to the bottom. Oh wait, rephrasing. No, I see. Oh yes, rephrasing. Do you expect the free nature of CCA fuel over the long term to allow the CCA?
So, I mean, I think he's getting to the question of, yeah, the fact that the fuel, right, wind and
I understand the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Price of renewables, right? And so, I don't know if you want to take that, Glenn, or you want me to talk, but.
Yes, it absolutely. So this happens over time, especially as these renewable power plants get a little bit older. So we're already seeing that with some of the older wind farms, like say in the Midwest and in Texas, where there's been instances where they bid, I don't want to get too wonky here, where they bid negative prices into energy auctions, because after a while, once their debt is paid off, essentially, they operate, like you say, freely. That's not the case at the start. There's still plenty of operating costs for renewable power plants because they tend to have to pay down a lot of the debt they took out to finance the project. I know now we're getting into some pretty serious territory, but it's after 8 o'clock, so I guess it's all bets are off. But yes, over time, to answer the question, over time, the price, the sort of wholesale price from renewable power sources, the economics tell us that over time, the price should be lower than fossil because, as you say, there is a constant fuel price to fossil fuels, and we don't know what the price of say natural gas will do. It's very low now and has been, but it could certainly go up. And other fossil based generators, the fuel price is always a big question mark for them, and it's always a major indicator of what their operating costs are and therefore what they're able to bid into energy auctions. The short answer is yes.
So I just want to be conscious of the fact that it's 8:15 and our interpreter has been working for well over an hour. So I don't know if we want to wrap it up or.
Well, I think that's maybe the last one anyway, right?
I think so.
Okay.
And I do want to thank Hannah. It's so important. You know, the town board has made a commitment that all of our town board meetings are ASL interpreted, and I appreciate the fact that here again, we want to make sure that what we're doing here is as accessible as we can be to as many people as possible. So thank you, Hannah. Glenn, Sue, thank you both very much for bringing your knowledge and your expertise to the table. Again, I just want to, you know, if we didn't get to your question, by all means, feel free to call 244-0244 and someone from Monroe Community Power will try to answer your question. A reminder, we do have one more of these a week from tonight, December 8th at 7 p.m. But thank you everybody for being a part of this. You had great questions. I hope everybody learned a lot. And I'm really pleased that so many of you are as excited as we are, that this is a program that is going to be transformational for Brighton. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Glenn. Good night. Have a good evening.
Night.
Thank you.